Hey, what's up everybody, Nexel here. Today we are playing Kingdom Hearts Union Cross, and let me start by saying it feels good to be back. I just finished my final exams, which is why I haven't posted much for the past few weeks, but now that I am done, I am in my summer break and I am ready to start playing more video games, ready to do more Union Cross, ready to stream more with you guys and see what you guys are up to. So let's go ahead and kick this summer off with actually which seems like one of the better banners that we've received in quite a long time. Now I want to talk about the KEX EX and the illustrated Xion EX banners because there's a lot of reasons why you should and should not pull from this banner. So I want to go ahead and still talk about it, and let's go ahead and just hop right into the details. So it's going to be two new banners, and they're both going to be Mercy Pull banners, so you either pull from the KEX EX banner and get the KEX EX within 5 draws, or you pull from the Xion EX banner and get the Xion EX within 5 draws. Illustrated Xion EX, let me be specific. But not only that, but if you have to Mercy them, you get them pre-strengthened to 3 special attack dots, and you'll also get a magic broom with each pull, which is super sweet. And there's also the chance that you could receive the KEX EX from the illustrated Xion EX banner or vice versa. So that's super nice, and we'll go into that when we talk about the statistics of the banner itself. So everyone has 7 days for these banners until they go away, which is super cool, because if it was one of those 3-day banners like they did before, that doesn't really give people enough time to farm for the jewels. So especially if you're like a new player, or if you just haven't caught up with Proud Mode or things like that, there's still quite a few jewels that you can hunt for out there. There's still Union Crosses to go through. So 7 days is a pretty solid time for people that just want to speed run those missions, get the jewels, not worry about the objectives, just make sure they get the jewels necessary to pull from this. So that's super nice that they started off with 7 days versus 3 days like they have before. Note that if you receive illustrated KEX EX from the KEX EX banner or illustrated Xion EX from the illustrated Xion EX banner, it doesn't affect the counter for the other banner. So let's say you pulled 4 times into the KEX banner, you'd still have to pull 5 times into the Xion banner to Mercy the Xion. So keep that in mind that they're separate, which is super nice, especially if you do need to pull for both. Not only that, but so this is kind of where it gets weird. You receive at least 1 tier 5 or higher medal pre-strengthened to 1, 2, or 3 special attack dots in each draw. Now, we will talk about these a little bit later, just because copy medals on themselves just deserve their own talking about. But let's go ahead and talk about the illustrated KEX EX and the illustrated Xion EX. Now, to date, in my opinion, these are still the best buffers of all time. They are still the tier S plus medals because they just do so much for 1 medal, and they don't cost anything. Let's go ahead, that's part of the description, but let's go ahead and just talk about it. So for illustrated KEX EX, 1 turn increases upright strength by 2, increases general strength by 7, PSM strength by 6, and then decreases the target's general defense by 3, PSM defense by 4, increases the enemy countdown by 1. It also heals you, and it also fills gauges. Not only that, but it's going to hit all enemies, so if all the enemies have countdown on them, all of them will get +1. It costs nothing. The damage multiplier is not a big deal, because if you're using this as a buffer, you're not really worried about the damage too much. Illustrated Xion EX is the same thing, except instead of increasing upright strength by 2, she increases reverse strength by 2. Now, these, again, they are still the best buffers in the game just because of the amount of utility they offer you. I know that there's kind of a weird debate whether you should go for these or whether you should go for the stained glass medals, but I definitely think if you don't have either KEX EX or Xion EX, it's definitely worth pulling for these first. Mainly because, again, they're just so much more versatile. To have that enemy countdown is super important sometimes, because sometimes you need to use 2 medals to defeat something versus just the 1. Not only that, but they do PSM strength, so that's going to be like the whole power, speed, magic, versus the stained glass one, which only increase 1 attribute. So it's either going to be power, speed, or magic, but this one does all 3. And not only that, it also heals you. So when it comes to medals that say this medal does more damage the higher your HP is, even if you have second chance, if you don't have a means of healing yourself to get yourself back up to that maximum HP, you're not doing the maximum amount of damage with those medals, which is super crucial because some of the best medals out there use that as their damage modifier. So the fact that this has PSM, the fact that this does enemy countdown +1, it fills your gauges up, it heals you, and it costs nothing to use is very, very useful, and again, still the best buffers in the game. If I had to put either one in front of the other, Illustrated KHUX EX is definitely better than Illustrated Xi'an EX, mainly because the upright metal selection for this game is still better than the reverse selection for this game. Not saying that either is bad, it's super good to have either one. In my free-to-play account, in the global version, I have the KHUX EX, and then in my Japanese account, I have the Xi'an EX, and honestly, unless you're playing a very, very heavy meta game, it doesn't really matter which one you get, as long as you get one. But since you're able to preference it because there's two different banners, definitely go for KHUX EX if you haven't gotten it already. And if you still need Xi'an EX in case you run into plans where you have to use only reverse metals, that's definitely a valid option too. So I would definitely say this banner alone is worth pulling for the 5 Mercy into either Illustrated KHUX EX or Illustrated Xi'an EX. As some of you know from a previous banner where it was a Mercy within 5 pulls, I pulled on my free-to-play account for the Illustrated KHUX EX. It's just that important. Sorry about that. These medals really define the metagame, in my opinion. And not only that, they supplement the stained glass medals very well, because without any sort of means of restoring gauges, you could be stuck because stained glass medals don't restore gauges and they cost 2. So you still need a way to restore gauges even with the OP stained glass medals. So again, these are still the best buffers in the game, in my opinion. And if you definitely want to have a discussion about that, definitely feel free to leave a comment below. I am definitely down to hear what everyone's thoughts are. I'm only one guy, so to hear everyone's thoughts and put it all together, that's collaboration. Alright, so let's go ahead and talk about the returning medals, which are probably, in my opinion, the most powerful medals in the game, and those are copy medals. Copy medals will never go out of style. HD Nominee, even though she's a tier 5, I still use her from time to time because I was able to get some good traits on her, because sometimes you need tier 5 or below, and sometimes you just need an additional upright blue copy medal, because if you have Kingdom Hearts 2 Nominee and you only have one, you can have HD Nominee and you technically have 2 upright blue buffers, upright blue copy medals, which is fantastic, especially for things that have multiple blue slots, or if you're using one of them in the pet slot. Because let's say for Fairy Stars, that 3rd slot is upright blue, and then the pet slot it gets its general multiplier no matter what the color is. So you can use these medals for that. You can put one on that 3rd slot, one on the pet slot, and that's really good. So, you know, even as tier 5s, they're still super useful. For the copy key art, those still find their place, especially in Proud Mode, when you have to use medals that are 2 gauges or higher requirement, because they will bypass the rule where you pretty much can't use anything less than 2 gauges. I've definitely used it in place of like a KHUX EX. So let's say I had a KHUX EX in Proud Mode, because it's 0 gauges, I couldn't use it in any modes that require 2 or more gauges. But if I threw a copy key art after that, it beats that minimum. It has 2 gauges, copies my KHUX EX, and then I get all the buffs for the rest of that Proud Mode mission. So even the copy key arts, while they're sort of outdated, are still very, very useful. As some of you guys know, I rolled extra attack on my key art beginnings recently. I have 2 key art bonds. One has aerial, one has ground and raise on it, and those serve me very, very well. Especially since you can throw them on the pet slot when you have missions where you can't use friend medals, but you can still copy your own powerful setups. So, for example, we'll hop back to this medal, but let me show you an example of what I mean by that. So, this, for example, this is actually a pretty solid example. So, as you can see, I have my key art bonds here. Again, it's only tier 5, but it has ground and raids in it, and I'm using it to copy my Sephiroth EX Plus, which is a super good combo, because then after that I end up with -6 reverse defense down on all my opponents, and then I can go into whatever in my pet slot. So don't undermine the key arts, the copy medals, just because they are still very useful. It's all about context, and since there are only so many copy medals out there, there's always like a slot for pretty much every single copy medal. Alright, so let's go ahead, head back to our banner. Alright, cool. So, you can get pretty much any of the available copy medals. I believe this is all of them. So HD Nominee, Key Art Sky, Key Art Bonds, and Key Art Beginnings. Those are all tier 5, meaning they're going to hit that maximum 150% gilt without any sort of modifying on it. For HD Xion and HD Antiform Sora, those are going to be tier 6, so that's going to be 180% gilt. And then for HD Vanitas and Kingdom Hearts 2 Nominee, that's going to be 200% gilt. And for the reverse, what is it? I actually don't know the name of it. HD Riku Replica, that's going to be tier 8, so that is 230%. So, obviously when it comes to power, HD Riku Replica is the best, but he's not forward copying. So if you need a forward copy of Friend Medal, you have to use something super powerful, and we're looking at HD Vanitas and Kingdom Hearts 2 Nominee for forward copying in the pet slot. That way you can get your Friend Medal at a very, very powerful multiplier, because as some of you may or may not have looked into, the Friend Medal actually receives pretty much roughly around at most a ×2 multiplier, where the pet slot will get like pretty much almost everyone has a minimum of a ×3 multiplier on their pet slot. So being able to copy a Friend Medal with that pet slot that's like usually ×3 is going to give you more damage output than the Friend Medal alone. Especially, it can be especially useful if you're using something like Vexen Plus as the medal you're copying. So your friend's medal is Vexen Plus and you're copying it. That means you're also going to get all those defense debuffs for 2 turns. It's really, really good. And pretty much, if you haven't gotten it from how much I've been gushing about it, these copy medals are fantastic. Again, they never age. There's always a use for them at some place, sometime, in some scenario. So I definitely recommend getting a few copy medals if you haven't done so already. If anything, there's very few criticisms I have to say about this banner. The main one being the copy key arts, because while I said a lot of good things about them, they are still tier 5. Even if you get extra attack on them and you're using them to copy something like Illustrated Xion EX or Illustrated Kairi EX, you actually still lose the 2 gauges. So in those scenarios where you copy medal that restores gauges, you still lose the 2 gauges used to activate the copy key art. So those are probably the main deterrents, but that's still not to say they're bad. It takes it down from great to like a very, 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 very good. So this banner is still fantastic. A lot of people have been waiting for this copy banner for the longest time. Way back when, even before we had Kingdom Hearts 2 Nominee and the Repliku, or HD Riku Replica. That's why I never knew the name, because everyone calls it Repliku. Now, while we're still talking about it, we've talked about all the medals, we've talked about how fantastic they all are. There's so many places for all of them. I'd love to go into detail, but maybe that's for a different video altogether. I guess if I had to sum it up super short, the HD Nominee is super useful in Counterpoint and Fairy Stars. Pretty much any of the key arts are solid in the pet slot because they're they're backwards copy medal, so they'll copy that 5th slot of your Keyblade. HD Xion, fantastic in Dark Gnaw, and also fantastic in Fairy Stars. The HD Antiform Sora, fantastic in Fairy Stars and Sleeping Lion. HD Vanitas, fantastic in Diamond Dust, also has a good place in the Counterpoint if you're using it that way. Kingdom Hearts 2 Nominee, just like HD Nominee, is going to go to a Counterpoint and to Fairy Stars, and then obviously Repliku as a backwards copy medal is fantastic in the pet slot, it's fantastic in the Dark Gnaw, it's fantastic in Fairy Stars. So pretty much, again, these copy medals are fantastic. If you don't have any, I would definitely recommend getting some. Alright, now let's talk about the banner as a whole rather than the 2 individual parts. So, pretty much what's going to separate this banner for a lot of people, whether or not you should pull, comes down to the draw ratios. So, like always, there's a 10% chance you'll pull into an additional 6-star or higher. So that's like an additional premium, pretty much. And the thing I want people to take note of here is that Illustrated Xian EX and Illustrated Kairi EX have a higher probability than any of the other premiums to show up. So when you do the math, you know, it comes out to greater than 1%. So this 10% here, that's that 10% per metal that's drawn being a premium, there's a higher chance that it's going to be Illustrated Xian EX or Illustrated Kairi EX, which is fantastic. That gives you like 9 pulls, so the 9 other metals that aren't the guarantee, 9 different metals that could potentially be an Illustrated Xian EX or an Illustrated Kairi EX. It's like 1 in 100 chance, but the fact that you get that 9 times is pretty significant in my opinion. So I definitely think that's really cool that those ratios are bumped up in our favor. Alright, moving along down to the guarantees. So when it comes to Illustrated Xian EX and Illustrated Kairi EX, that's, again, it's higher than the statistic earlier, than that 0.52%. This one is 0.6%. So not only do you have a solid shot at any of the non-guarantees being Illustrated Kairi EX or Illustrated Xian EX, you also get a solid shot of the guarantee actually being one of them. That's like 1.2%. It's not 1 in 100 that are gonna get that, but I mean, it's still a pretty solid chance altogether, especially when you think of you have to mercy it in 5. Like, that's still really, really good. So I think that's fantastic that that's the ratio. Moving on to the copy metals, this was a very interesting choice in my opinion. So all the metal ratios are even, so your chance of getting like a tier 5 is the same chance of you getting the tier 8 Repliku. And that's super cool that they evened out the ratios like that, rather than doing what they normally do where tier 5s have a higher percentage and then tier 8s have a lower percentage. So it's super cool that they evened it all out throughout all of the metals there. And what I noticed here is that while they're really, really small, the chances of getting a boosted metal is overall really solid. After you crank out all the math, there's actually a 9% chance that your guaranteed metal is going to be a boosted metal. So to have a boosted copy art, a boosted copy metal is just fantastic on its own. So, with all the praise that I've been giving this banner, let's answer the real question of should you pull for this banner. Now, if you don't have Illustrated Kairi EX or Illustrated Xian EX, the answer is absolutely yes. Those metals have redefined the meta time after time. People are using them in high score challenges all the time. People are using them in Coliseum still. The meta is actually moving towards a direction where you get these 2 metals with extra attack on them. So just having it isn't enough. Having extra attack on it is becoming super necessary for that very high level tier game. And it's super nice that they did that because they paired it with a copy art banner. So not only are you going to get the Illustrated Kairi EX or the Illustrated Xian EX after 5 draws, you're also going to get at least something to copy it with. So that's at least going to give you pretty much 2 activations of the metal. That's 10 gauges healed. That is pretty much a full health bar right there. That is enemy countdown +2. So that's really, really good that they paired it up like this. So if you don't have Illustrated Xian EX or Illustrated Kairi EX, I would definitely pull. If you don't have any copy metals, I would definitely pull. Definitely without question pull. Because even if you get it 1-orbed, I can guarantee that a copy metal, you can throw Mickey and Brooms on there and it would still be worth it. It would still be worth it even if you got another one like in a few months, because all that is going to be a trait, but every moment until that, you're using a fully gilted copy metal, which has so much utility, so much usefulness. So I definitely think if you don't have copy metals, if you don't have Illustrated Kairi EX, you know, the time to save is not now. This is the time to build up all your jewels and get either of the buffer metals and then build up copy metals along the way. Because even if you get them, again, 1-orbed, 3-orbed, it doesn't matter, because having Mickey and Brooms on them will definitely give you an edge until you pretty much can draw more into that metal. With that being said, I would, if you do plan on pulling, I would do all my pulls pretty much at once so that you don't waste Mickey and Brooms. Because let's say you got HC Antiform Sora in one pull and then you Mickey and Broomed it, and then you got HC Antiform Sora in another pull from the same banner. It's kind of just like, why'd you waste those Mickey and Brooms? So if you were gonna pull for this, I would definitely do all your pulls, make sure you're done pulling until you actually Mickey and Broom the copy metals. Now, with that being said, who does this banner not go for? This banner, if you already have pretty much all of these components, if you have the illustrated KHUX, if you have the illustrated Xi'an EX, if you have the copy medals, they're pretty much already max gilted, this is definitely not the banner for you, in my opinion, unless you want to trait gamble. If you want to trait gamble, by all means, you know, having extra attack on a copy medal, having extra attack on either illustrated Xi'an or illustrated KHUX is super powerful, like ridiculously OP. So if you want to do the trait rolls, if you want to gamble it, that's totally fine. That's up to you. I can respect the decision because I totally get where you're coming from. But the thing is, there are a few things that can make this not worth it. The first thing being, you can get copy key arts. Now, I gave them a lot of praise, but if you're trait rolling and you're going for the copy key arts, or if you're trait rolling and you get copy key arts, you can get that from the newcomers deal. Pretty much one guaranteed copy backwards key art, and then you can trade that way because they don't come orbed, and you're only going to be spending 1,500 jewels versus the 3,000 jewels. So that's a big difference. That is like 2 trait rolls on key arts if you pulled from the newcomers deal versus pulling from this EX metal deal. So if you got pretty much, you have a gilted, let's say, key art beginning and a gilted key art sky, you pull key art beginning, key art sky from this, that's 6,000 medals down the 6,000 jewels down the drain, when you could have gotten almost the same thing by pulling from the newcomers deal. So keep that in mind, that the key art copies are always available via the newcomer deal, and they could definitely be a negative point for this banner. The next thing being that if you are pulling for traits, know that you are taking the risk of spending 3,000 jewels just to get potentially, and I wish everyone the best of luck if they're doing this, but you could potentially be getting poison resist, you could potentially be getting max gauges, you could potentially be getting HP plus 800, or my arch nemesis in this game, you could be getting defense plus 2,000. So keep in mind, 3,000 jewels is, in my opinion, not enough for that gamble, because while it is nice that this is the tightest pool we will ever get when it comes to pulling copy medals, you know, those jewels can be used for a bunch of other things. They can be used to pull for stained glass, they can be used to pull for skills, which we are in desperate need of right now. So 3,000 jewels, it's a lot to sink for trait rolling, unless you're like some sort of mega whale or like you're sponsored or something. It's not worth just rolling for traits. So it's definitely better the newer you are at this game, but the more veteran you are, the more of these copy medals you have, the less value that these banners have. What else? Well, that's pretty much all I wanted to say about this banner. This video is getting pretty long, and honestly, I think it's worth the length just because this medal, this banner, this 2 banners into 1 banner is worth talking about. It is worth getting an opinion out there, especially if you're newer. You know, these are definitely the right banners for you. I would definitely, if you're new, spend the time, really sit down and just grind until you can pull for these medals, because as of right now, this is the meta standard. These are still being paired with the stained glass medals because they're super useful still. So keep that in mind, that as far as I can see into the future, unless they release like a Kyrie stained glass medal, or like they already have a Xi'an stained glass medal, but unless they release like a Kyrie stained glass medal, you cannot deny that these are definitely 2 of the best medals in the entire game, probably if not the best. So with that being said, I am going to always end this video with a disclaimer of, if you plan on pulling, I would definitely wait pretty much almost until the last day, because 4 hours before the banner cuts off, they let you know if something new is coming up, if something crazy is coming up. But I'm not expecting to see anything crazy until these stained glass medals go away. So with that being said, that is the video for now. That is my analysis of this dual banners into 1 banner. If you guys have any questions, comments, or concerns, feel free to throw them. Feel free to throw blah 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 blah. Feel free to drop them down in the comments below. Again, it feels so good to be back. Let me know what y'all have been up to, because I feel like it has been a long time since we've talked. Alright, that is the video for now. Again, drop them down below in the comments if you got anything to say. But as always, everyone, until the next time, take it easy.